And Commissioner Zuberg, would you call the roll for the Planning Commission, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Dodson?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
Commissioner Graham-Hudek?
Here.
And Commissioner Zuber? Here. And Chairman Green.
Here.
I had to stop and think there.
And
I was like, wait a minute,
trustees?
you said there were only 5 of us,
Early move
so I left myself out.
All right.
God, I can't count. Can't
The trustee Anthony, not here.
Yeah.
Trustee Graham, Foster is not here. Trustee Graham-Hudek. Here. Let the record reflect that Clerk Segrist is present. Treasurer Slavens.
Good evening.
Trustee Snyderman is not here. And Supervisor Williams is not here as well. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Goulet, our Township Community Planner, to tell us why we're here and what we're doing tonight.
Okay, 2017 is our 5-year update year for the comprehensive plan. Since we have a new township board and several new planning commission members since the last time we went through this, we thought it would be a good idea to have kind of a facilitated session with both groups just to kind of start afresh in terms of what the master plan is, what it does, what everybody's responsibilities are, and then to do some brainstorming or goal setting, which we brought Carlisle Associates in to help us out with, just to help you kind of go through some of the goal setting and priority setting for us, so that as the Planning Commission moves in to evaluation of the plan, can we know what everybody's kind of hot buttons are, or areas that we need to concentrate on, or things that we need to evaluate. And hopefully we can kind of get some of that out in the open through this goal setting session tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Carlisle with Carlisle Associates, and he'll explain to you more what we're going to do tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good to see you all again. Great to see some familiar faces, as well as meet some new folks here. Dick Carlisle with me, and Charlotte Wilson from our office also. As you know, some of you know, our offices are located in Ann Arbor. We also have an office in Troy, and work throughout southeastern Michigan for about 80 to 50 years. So we get to see a little bit of everything, you know. But we've always enjoyed working in Canton because it is pretty close to home. We've done work with you 20, 25 years on a whole variety of different subjects, and we really enjoy when we're asked to come in for special times like this to help you work your way through a particular process. We're going to start out by Jeff turning on getting Jeff's attention here, and starting with what we're going to do tonight. PowerPoint. Back up there. Yeah. We want to talk briefly. I want to give a little bit of background about the master plan.
Okay. Can I interrupt you just a minute? Is it possible you can hold the microphone so that they can get your voice?
Can they get it when I stand here?
Maybe right there, but if you want to.
This is going to be hard.
Sorry.
Well, because we have to be up at these boards. So do you have a remote
Like we
mic?
need a roving mic.
Okay.
Cavalier.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry. We,
Yeah.
like I said,
Jen Park
working
from your office can hold the mic for you as
30,
you move.
35 years, 80 communities. I've learned to roll with the punches, I'll tell you. So, okay, yeah, we'll figure this out. Don't worry. So anyway, we want to go through this. We want to talk a little bit about what the comprehensive master. I'm going to start out with just a brief presentation. I don't want it to be too long. I just want to go through some of the basics and the fundamentals. Talk about the roles and responsibilities, how you develop the document, and what the adoption process is. One of the things we all have to remember is land use decisions do not operate in a vacuum. You essentially have 3 entities that have a role to play: the Township Board, the Board of Appeals, and the Planning Commission. And then you have lots of support here in Canton Township from a very professional staff and consultants and things of that nature to help you make those decisions. There's really 3 entities that you have here. With the Township Board, the Township Board makes appointments at the recommendation of the supervisor, that you adopt the ordinance, and you do review of rezonings, you develop budgets, and if you choose to, you can adopt the master plan. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. There are other policy decisions that the township board makes, in other words, in terms of the whole legislative oversight. Well, the Planning Commission is sort of the administrative implementer. You know, they're the ones that prepare the master plan. They're the ones that prepare the zoning ordinance amendments for your consideration as a board. They will review site plans. We don't see too many subdivision plats anymore. In fact, I don't think we see any anymore. And they will also provide recommendations to you on matters to which you may ultimately decide. And we have the Board of Appeals, and that's the board that is the Board of Relief. You know, they're sort of a semi-judicial part of local government. They will hear a request when a party feels aggrieved by a decision of the Planning Commission, possibly. We know that never happens here, of course. They will hear appeals on dimensional variances and interpretations of the ordinance. So we, up until about 10 years ago, we had 4 planning acts in Michigan. We had the Township Planning Act, we had the Municipal Planning Act, we had the County Planning Act, and we had the Regional Planning Act. Regional Planning Act is the only one that stayed out of that whole cluster of laws. And the Planning Act that affects you was all consolidated under the Michigan Planning Act, which was passed in 2008. It's been a tremendous benefit. One of the things that we benefit from out of that is common terminology among cities and villages and townships when they're doing a master plan, which is tremendously helpful for people who work in multiple communities, like consultants like me, but also think about people who own property in various places and developers and things of that nature. To be able to be governed by one planning act has been tremendous. Planning is planning, you know, whether it's in a city, village, or township. We know that the issues are different in every community, but the basic premises upon which planning is based is the same. We also have a single zoning enabling act, which is the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. That was another thing that was a tremendous accomplishment in this state, is to be able to consolidate all the zoning acts under one also. And again, especially for clerks, it's been a real boon, because the fact is that we used to have different requirements under all the planning acts for public hearing notices for different procedures. We have one procedure now for public hearings. So it's been, both of these were tremendous, were a lot of work, but it's been a tremendous benefit to us. And these are the laws that govern what you do. Zoning and planning is not something that is that you are enabled or empowered to do this by the state. Come on in. Hi. How are you? I've also known Kristen for a long time too. I knew her when she was in high school, actually. She's not that old. Anyway, so these are the acts that really empower you to do what you're doing. So if you ever have a question about anything, whether it's legal or not, besides asking your stellar township attorney, go to the Planning Enabling Act, because it'll tell you. So let's move on, Jeff. People always ask me, why do you plan? What is the purpose of your plan? I saw a funny print cartoon the other day. These two guys were talking, and obviously it looked like they were in some kind of business setting, and the one says to the other, goes, "We usually do our long-range planning at the last minute." Well, not a very good idea, usually, because the purpose of planning, especially as a community as dynamic as a place like Canton or many other places, the purpose of planning is to anticipate change that might occur in your community. It's to create predictability in land use decisions and create predictability for the decisions that private parties have to make about how to use their land. It is intended to be able to use your physical and natural resources in the most wise manner, especially when they become more finite in a growing community, to create a vision for the future that is a reflection of what the folks who live here would like to see, because there's a lot of reasons why people live in Canton. There's a lot of reasons why they'd like to continue to live in Canton, and they'd like the planning to reflect their vision for the future and to really protect the quality of life, which, Canton Township is known for a high quality of life. The master plan really is your only official document that that sets these policies, you know, in a single document that sets forth your goals for the future of this community. So it is your official policy document that really is a statement of what you would like to see for the future of this community. Now, many people ask me, if we're required to update a plan every 5 years, is it a 5-year plan? Yes and no. It's really a 5-year plan with a long-term vision. And the reason I'm really pleased with the fact that we are now required to update the plan every 5 years, besides the fact that some people who have criticized it as the planner's full employment bill, it's not really true. The reason I like it is because it does force communities to be more current on their master plans. And also, it gives you the opportunity to be more strategic. You know, there are current problems that can be solved in the more near term, but they really need to be viewed in terms of a long-term vision. And that's why I'm pleased that we have, you know, this in our act that is something that keeps it more current in your minds. 5 years is not a very long period of time. I know I have commissioners here probably that you've been through this more than once, correct? So the idea is that you know, you're forced to really keep it current, and then also when you're keeping it more current, it provides for the legal defensibility of the plan. Jeff, move on. So the question always is when is, well, you missed a slide. There you go. When do you update a master plan? Well, you update when it's needed. You know, you update as needed, and there's nothing to say that you have to wait 5 years if a certain circumstance occurs where update is needed. I'll give you a great example. We work in a nearby community, which is Ypsilanti Township. The American Center for Mobility, which is the autonomous vehicle testing facility at Willow Run, is going to make major changes in that community in terms of the attraction of new business and industry to that area that want to be near there. Probably this is a time in that particular area where that's a community that may want to look at their master plan, even though they just updated their master plan just a year and a half ago. So that's the kind of circumstance that can happen in a community that can be a game changer. And that's why you update it when changes are needed. But at least every 5 years, and that's why you're doing this now. So basically, the purpose of using the master plan is to make zoning decisions. It provides a basis for zoning decisions. It assists you in making capital improvement and infrastructure decisions. And it's also intended to provide cooperative planning between public and the private sector. I think my microphone went out. Oh, no, it did. Okay. All right, go on. I already mentioned the fact that you make zoning decisions based on a plan. Well, as a matter of fact, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires that you make zoning decisions based upon a plan. Now, if you read a lot of the case law decisions, which Kristen will talk to you about, in some cases, the courts have been a little bit more lenient in some cases than others, you know, if there was some type of plan or policy upon which a decision was made. But I can tell you that as someone who does a lot of expert testimony, it's always better to be able to defend a community when they have an up-to-date plan and they've used that plan as a basis for making a decision. Even if the decision you make might be slightly at variance with that plan and you had good reasons for doing it, it does not look like you're making decisions on an arbitrary basis. And that's why it's very important that, you know, our zoning ordinance and our master plan are somewhat in sync, although a zoning ordinance is the immediate implementation of planning. Master plan is really the longer-term vision.
Dick, can I stop you for just 1 second?
Sure.
'Cause I have a question along
Yeah.
those lines. You just mentioned Ypsilanti and what they're going through right now. So, and maybe Kristen can speak to this, the legal aspects of those changes that come about unexpectedly possibly put the community in a liability situation, maybe, depending on who views things a certain way. You said that planning should come from the master plan, but many times there's deviations
Correct.
that have to be made.
Right.
So how do you protect yourself from that?
Well, I mean, I think you're doing it right now. You make sure, I mean, the first and foremost, you do make sure that your plans are as up-to-date as possible and that you are doing your very best. I mean, I think that as long as a legitimate public effort is being shown to provide, to create the most rational, least arbitrary master plan, and you are, regularly making zoning decisions that are based upon that plan, with some exceptions when there are unusual circumstances, you're going to be on more firm ground than communities that have not updated their plan for 30 years or don't ever follow the plan when they make decisions. And then I think we have more difficulty in situations like that.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was December, January, February, we had Carol Rosati out, and she talked a little bit more about the legal aspects of planning and implications of actions of the Planning Commission and the board. And I think she touched on, decisions made by the commission and the board that aren't necessarily in line with the master plan. And kind of like Dick mentioned very briefly, but if you can, that's one of those situations where you need a very detailed motion when the planning commission is making its recommendation and the board is making its decision. You need to have the justification. You need to talk about it in your decision, and you need to put it in your motion. And then you follow it up later when it's convenient with the master plan amendment to bring that stuff in sync.
Right. And two, frequently, if you have a real game-changing, and this happens in many circumstances. I don't recommend it all the time, because your master plan should be written in a fashion that gives you enough general policy guidance that you have some degree of flexibility when you make a zoning decision. I mean, a plan is not an ordinance, okay? An ordinance is an act of law. A plan is a policy document that provides you with generalized guidance. So the term that I like to use, I hear people use the term, well, it conforms to the plan. The term I like better is it's consistent with the plan. Because, there is no one single land use proposal necessarily that might conform with every aspect of your plan. But if it points you in the right direction and it's consistent with your overall vision, policy, goals for a particular area of the township, then you're on firm ground. The other thing is that there are always unanticipated things that happen in every community. And so consequently, your plan, nor your ordinance in some cases, but your plan can't always predict everything that's going to happen. Great case in point was, ACM. I don't think 3 years ago, before this was talked about, the Ypsilanti Township would have necessarily anticipated that facility being a reality in their community. So there are things that do occur in your community that it may not be completely anticipated by your plan. But again, if your plan points you in a general direction about a particular thing, then you are on firm basis by relying on this plan. And I'll give you another great example. We have many really nice residential areas here in Canton Township. Something that would be completely unanticipated and really probably not in keeping with your plan. It was something of a very non-residential nature, let's say of an industrial or commercial nature, was being proposed in an area that you had a long-standing policy of that area being maintained as residential. So, sure.
There was a question way back, and I think it might have been one of the new board members, but I can't remember. But to sort of touch on your thing that an ordinance is an act of law, whereas the master plan is a policy, someone raised the question of, well, why don't you just have your zoning ordinance and your master plan be the same? Do you want to maybe touch on why that's not necessarily the best idea?
Well, first of all, I think it's an impossible idea. It would be very, very difficult to have one consistent document. The other thing is that, zoning ordinance being a provision of law, it is based on a specific zoning enabling act. And so your zoning ordinance really must follow the precepts that are set forth in the zoning enabling act. Your master plan is empowered by a completely different law. But really, it's your master plan that provides you with guidance in terms of changes that you might need to make to the zoning ordinance. And so your zoning ordinance and the changes that come out of that should really flow from the concepts that you talk about and you agree upon on a policy basis by the master plan. And, you know, it's not out of the question that after you get through with this master plan update, that you might identify areas where you need to update, you know, the zoning ordinance in terms of new concepts or new provisions or changes in densities in certain areas or things of that nature. But you'll be better off and be able to defend your decisions more if you've gone through this process, you know, and updated this, and then act upon your zoning ordinance amendments or other plan amendments or other policy amendments, capital improvements plan, for example, based on the things that come out of this master plan. Yeah.
What's going on in Ypsilanti now is something we need to know, because it's going to affect
Right.
how that comes down towards us down Michigan Ave.
And that's another great question. That's another great point, is that there's things that can happen in other communities that affect what happens in your community. Michael?
Right.
Did you have a question?
I'm 100% with what Sue just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Well, you've seen it happen, too. I mean, you're affected by boundary decisions, things that happen in other communities that create new dynamics in your community. So that's another good reason why I think the Enabling Act put this 5-year update requirement on there, because it's not always things that happen, you know, it's not only things that happen in your community, it's things that are happening externally, too.
We actually went a couple of weeks ago to M-City just for that
Oh,
reason.
did you? Good.
Yeah, to tell
Yeah.
them that we wanted to be proactive
Yeah.
and seeing how we could work with them, so.
Well, it's almost mind-boggling, the whole, what all of the cultural and physical changes that are going to come about through autonomous vehicles. I mean, that's a subject we could spend an entire week talking about that, and it'll all come out, I think, as things go on. But yeah, that's good. That's good that you've been able to do that. So I think we're about ready to launch into, well, just finally, I think we've talked a little bit, already talked about this. You know, the Township Board, you know, you are the legislative body and the one that is establishing policy. A planning commission works, you know, to support the decisions that you ultimately make, as well as reflect the broad desires of the community. So it's always important to me that we have these kind of sessions in every community. I really encourage it, because so often planning commissions are kind of left in a vacuum without communication with the board. Now, the one game changer that has occurred, again, under the Planning Enabling Act is that township boards, if they so choose, can also adopt the master plan. It used to not be this way. Our previous Township Planning Act only had the Planning Commission adopt the plan, which I thought was insane, frankly. You know, when you're asking a township board to be the ultimate decider on rezonings that are supposed to be based on your master plan and then have had no input into the master plan, I thought that from a legal standpoint, that was just a time bomb. Even before the act was amended or was changed in 2008, we always recommended that township boards be involved in the master plan and that they ultimately either adopt or at least endorse that plan. Well, now you have the legal authority to actually do that, because the law says, one, is that when it's all done and the Planning Commission hands you their draft, which hopefully you've had plenty of input in, you are the body that decides that this document is ready to go out for distribution, because the other thing that is now required is that there is a formal distribution process to your neighboring communities. So the neighbors around you, Oakland County, I'm in the wrong place, Wayne County, and other bodies have the legal authority to at least review and comment on the plan. There's a 63-day comment period. Don't ask me why it's 63 days, but that's what it is. So the board is the one that decides that plan is ready for distribution, but the board may also decide that they want to ultimately be the body that adopts that plan. So in that case, the Planning Commission is making a recommendation of adoption to your township board. So at some point in time during this process, you'll need to make that decision. So I think let's launch into our exercise so that I don't get behind. Let's keep going, Jeff. Let's just go right to, okay. So this is really a great opportunity for both boards to be able to informally participate in the identification of things that you think that you need to look at for this master plan update. It's an opportunity for board members to express to the Planning Commission things they'd like to see you to work on. It's an opportunity for you as planning commissioners to express to the board things that you think are of a planning priority also. And the way we do that is we do this brainstorming exercise. What we've done here is we've posed 5 questions, which you have in your packets. And what we don't ask for a doctoral dissertation on each question. This is the time to get some thoughts down on paper and get it, some succinct thoughts in terms of things that you think need to be reviewed in this master plan. So what we ask you to do for the next about 15 minutes is on each one of these topics that you choose to write on, please write your thoughts on what is an issue of concern to you, something you think needs to be addressed, a problem that you see, or something that would be a case where leave this alone in the master plan. The only thing I ask of you to do as you're writing these things is just write the number down on there. Just put a little number up in the corner of the question that you are addressing. So just to repeat, the 5 questions are future land uses for transitional areas. We have a number of these areas in the township that are either are not completely developed or in need of redevelopment. Several of these are listed below and listed in our sheet of questions. They can be other areas that you've identified that you think we need to take another look at this area, okay? But we've just identified a few. These are just example areas, but if there's others, please feel free to say, hey, we need to concentrate in this area. You also have some pretty robust development objectives and policies in your master plan. Again, these are areas, broadly expressed as goals that that you have in your master plan, that if there's some areas of those that you either agree or disagree, or you would like further concentration on new areas, this is the time to write that down. The third is infrastructure and utilities. How do you view the relationship between development and your availability of utilities? Transportation and roads, I know that's a big issue, traffic impact, traffic congestion. This is the area where there's some particular areas that are a concern to you. And finally, as a board member or as a planning commission member, what other issues are not discussed above that you want the planning commission to look into? So once you write these ideas down, we will array these on the board. We'll group like thoughts, okay? And I will review those with you, and then we will have a discussion about those. And we're not going to come to any conclusions tonight, but what we're trying to get is a good sort of menu of issues that you would collectively think need to be looked at in this current master plan update. So what I'm going to ask you to do, we're going to take about 15 or 20 minutes to do that. And when you're done with one thought, please, one thought on a sticky note, put it right here, and we'll collect it, and we will array these up here. And then when we're done with that, then we'll have a little bit of discussion. Does everybody get it? Any
Can I
questions?
just ask one question? Jeff, do you think maybe you should explain a little bit about a couple of these things for people that aren't?
As Dick, suggested, there's, like under number 1, there's 3 items: mixed-use area along Michigan Avenue, mixed-use area along lots, and we've got an area on the north side of Kopernik, that may need to be looked at because of the surrounding land uses and those kinds of things. So those were 3 areas that staff identified that probably need to be evaluated, that we've been struggling with in certain areas for 20 years in terms of what it should be, especially with the mixed-use policies. So this is your opportunity to add to that list or comment on any specific thing that are on this particular list. We don't want to limit you in any way. So if there's an area of the township, and we'll bring up the land use map so you can take a look at it. So if there's anything other, on the land use map side of it that you want to throw up there, put it down on your sticky note and we'll put it up there and then we can discuss it later, as Dick said. So we just threw out some general ideas to get you thinking about certain things, but we don't want to limit you, so.
So I could see that we were looking at, I saw one person looking at the size of the sticky note.
Or just the color, do the colors mean anything?
No, nothing. But if by chance you feel the need to write a larger note, I have extra larger sticky notes here. But I want you to try to be succinct because there's going to be plenty of time to discuss these things. Because when we get into the discussion portion, we are going to be taking notes, okay? So, now's the time to start. So we'll do this as a silent writing exercise. Yeah, Greg?
So in the first two objectives, we need to identify the sub-objectives, like 1A, 1B, 1C, goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, goal 4 of those
Anything else,
boards, right?
correct. There's
Okay.
anything else about any transitional areas that are of concern to you. You don't have to comment on everything.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not expecting everybody to comment on each one of these areas. I would only comment on the things that are of concern to you, okay? Jeff, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, and those are already identified. If there's something specific in those areas, then be more specific. If you agree with the comment, then, yeah, we need to look, something that we need to look at, so. Could be policy-oriented, or it could be map-oriented, because the map is one thing, but our policies and goals and objectives are another. So like under the mixed-use policies, for example, yeah, we've designated mixed use. We provided a copy of the mixed-use policies in your packet for reference. If you want to look back at those, there's a separate sheet there. And on the back side, there's actually zoning strategies for the Lots Road area. So those are the actual policies that are currently in the plan to remind you of what those are relative to some of the specific land use guidelines. That's another one of those things that as Dick said before, the zoning decisions sometimes are based on the policies and goals, not necessarily the map itself. The map is a general guideline. The goals and objectives are more specific that provide you guys some flexibility in making decisions. So a lot of times when zoning applications come through, it's going to be us looking at the policies and objectives to see whether or not it's consistent with those or not.
Okay. Okay. So, the one thing about this, there's no wrong answers here. There's no bad answers. It's really what's on your mind and what's of concern to you. And so that's the opportunity to, on each one of these topics, and then we have sort of the catch-all bucket at the end, that it can be anything else. So again, it's not as if you have to write on every subject if it's not of any concern to you, and you write on every subject that is of concern to you. So we're going to do about 20 minutes, and I will collect these, as we... Carl and I will collect these and put these up on the boards.
Write out your stickies, just put them in front of your nameplate and we'll grab them.
Oh, they
Sorry,
can't
I
be
called you
anonymous.
Jennifer before.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think that's.
okay.
Public meeting. Stand by what?
Okay. Provision?
So you guys will decide where they go then? Or do you want?
Yeah, if you just write the number down, and even if you don't have a number,
Like 1A or.
Okay.
okay?
What's that? You're a mariachi. There, I ran out of thoughts.
They're talking, writing.
We could talk if we want to. What ideas do you have? Yes. They can adjust the timing. Mm-hmm. You need to balance that better. Yeah, she's really,
I know, that's what I was
oh,
thinking too.
never mind.
Do I
Did I
just
say
write
something?
Where in the community?
Yeah,
Oh, south.
south of Michigan, or west of Lots,
And west of Lots.
unless there's a
There's a
PDD.
map up there, but
But
it's,
weren't we just talking about one?
Yeah, near the,
South of Michigan Avenue near the dump?
yeah, near the dump, right.
So now, is this saying
But this is Lots, so,
But it says South
West of
Michigan or
Lots.
west of Lots,
oh, west of, okay.
or west of Lots.
There's a map.
Jeff, did you bring us a zoning map?
So this would be
Jeff?
near the landfill.
sorry?
It's not, he needs to scroll up to see Michigan Avenue. It's off the bottom of the map. Excuse me, Mr. Goulet. Mr. Goulet?
I think we have a lot of questions.
Paging Jeff Goulet. Oh, there we go. Yeah, your map isn't showing fully on the screen. There we go. Look at that, he came prepared with tablecloths.
He had that, he had that in his wallet.
He did, he had that in his wallet. That's Greg.
The mixed-use areas are the pink areas on the map. Actually, Michigan Avenue is scroll down.
Yeah, could you scroll up a little on that? Or scroll down? Scroll down.
I guess maybe if I just write generalization, they'll figure out. I can take these, yeah, I think they're probably in the other, but I don't know. You can determine that, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind looking at the map, so I know what the hell.
I think the mixed-use area, so I think on Michigan Ave, I think that was next to the landfill. So up here it says mixed-use area is a light industrial, office, or regional commercial zoning. But then down here it says residential uses may be considered an area designated mixed use, but not considered south of Michigan or west of Lot. So I assume that means near the landfill.
Yeah, yes. I'm afraid I'm not anonymous. Well, mine didn't work, so I brought out. No, I couldn't get it to write. Piece of shit pen.
In the master plan, Jeff, the thing that's the land use map. So that's the thing, but there's a zoning map also.
I'm asking.
Is the zoning, is it, okay, so this talks about
Maybe.
zoning also, general.
My pen is running
But
out
when
of
you
ink.
say
We've got 20 things to jump out, 5.
Parcel on Lots
I'm
Road,
drawing a
we're
plan.
rezoning to an R4 from an R2, but
Black
it
and white
could go to
is the east
R6.
of it.
It could go to R6 in what, the land use map?
The land use is the maximum density.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any zoning would have to make sense in the add below that, in conjunction with other, we do compatibility.
On your number.
I don't really understand what we do for number 2.
I said nothing to approve of. We're doing all of these things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we're achieving those objectives.
This is 7.
I looked it up.
Oh, jeez, I looked it up on the website today, but I didn't
Right.
look at that note.
Note from Friday.
Yeah.
Where's Pat?
Oh, he's not here. Yeah, he couldn't make it.
Oh.
Yeah, something came up,
Oh, okay.
family issue.
Yeah, it's Amy's note.
Yeah, it
Okay,
said
that's what I
7.
thought it was 7, and then I double checked today and someone said, no, it's at 6, so
Who said it?
I guess Michael.
Oh, and Michael knew?
Well, the outline that they mailed, they sent us in the email, then I looked and it said 6.
Amy's note said 7.
The initial note, I think, said 7.
Don't
But this
forget.
one that they,
This isn't our meeting, this is their meeting, so blame Greg
Please do
Green.
not forget the joint meeting with the planning commission
6
on Monday at 7.
see, and then the one, what they sent us out was itinerary, so that's 6. I know. Okay, let me see. Where am I at here?
Lots of
The very top.
Not
But it's been zoned industrial. You've got residential to the south, you've got Holiday Park, and you've got the to the north, and then you've got 275 and the railroad track. There's no industrial east of 275 and the railroad track. It's right here.
Oh, okay, I was thinking right here.
So this is residential here, and then this is really, this is really
Did he say C map? Which map are we supposed to do?
that one or the one up there.
I spoke concise.
C-O-N-C-I-S-E. I'm
Thank you.
sorry, you didn't ask me. I just,
That's all right. That was a general question.
okay.
I had my C and my S mixed up.
It's a regional commercial. What would regional commercial be?
I mean, regional commercial. I don't know if it's RC or industrial, what's research?
Jeff,
Light industrial research.
Yeah.
what's regional commercial?
larger topics. Basically, Michigan Avenue commercial.
Over here, this part right here.
Shopping centers, everything kind of east of Lily Road on Ford is regional. You know, your bigger uses, your bigger attractors. So community shopping would be your grocery stores and your neighborhood, your more stuff on Ford Road that's, west of Lily Road.
Okay.
That is serving more of the local, areas.
Okay,
The regional stuff is your big stuff.
okay.
C3, basically regional commercial, C3.
Candy.
Okay.
Trader Joe's M&M's. You can pass those down. Make sure Sue gets some.
As a matter of fact, yes.
I love your nail polish, Sue.
Oh, please. But thank you.
It's just,
I know.
I mean, to take two.
they're just Trader Joe's M&M's, okay? But they're in my little Zingerman's box.
That's for dinner. Don't take it from her.
I stopped at home and had some leftover pizza. Don't worry about me.
I was gonna bring you a sandwich. I really was.
That's all right. I know where their refill box is. You probably don't indulge in
For a minute, I
anything
thought
like
you were
that.
you were passing along some chewing tobacco.
Mm-mm.
I saw the tub. Should I pass this along?
Sure, why not?
Area for
Other people might like to,
Oh, thank you.
Home Depot.
they make you think out of the box.
Mango, magic pills? Is this like stuff candy?
Yeah.
Like magic M&Ms.
M&M? There you go.
Okay. Magic pills.
You shouldn't take candy from strangers, you know?
Anybody want magic pills?
Few more minutes.
We're going quick. We're not-
Thank
not-
you.
I think my blue marker's filling up a few of those boards. I do. No, no. Mm-mm. Maybe it's Maybelline. I love her skirt.
I am doing.
No.
It's so cute. The city,
How you feeling?
I'm feeling
the skyline.
pretty good. Things are good. So I just got in 5 minutes before you. Did you think it was at 7 also?
Yeah.
Amy's note said 7.
When all else fails, read.
No, Amy's note said
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I thought.
I was surprised. I could have been here.
Yeah, me too.
You are the most sorry that we approved from perspective. No, we approved them.
Yeah, really. She is just cranking them out.
Mine would be the big white thing on Michigan Avenue.
The what? The big white thing.
You know, where they skate or whatever they do in that.
Oh, the dome by the,
Yeah, we should have had that back in the industrial park center. But it wasn't so
done.
visible.
yeah.
All right.
That's
But I
my,
do think it gets a lot of use though.
oh, yeah.
Because I know, well, I know the library, and other little people that skate over there at the Arctic Edge. That's a big deal. Here comes Alan for a 7 o'clock meeting.
Oh,
Alan, you're
okay.
right there.
Well, my mistake. Yeah, nice of you to make it.
Alan, sit down. You got to write fast. Hurry up, Alan. You got to
I
write
think there's
fast.
been some confusion. I heard them talking about 7 o'clock.
I wouldn't mind a lot of them.
I know.
Well,
Oh, you
it's-
thought this was a 7 o'clock meeting?
I missed anything
I think some people over there did too.
Well, I don't know where I got sick. Then I was reminded at another meeting I was with Jeff. He goes, I said, see you Monday. He says, you know that starts at 6, right? And I said, oh, that's right, yeah. Okay.
I agree with all your comments.
Is it really an international airport? Is it really an international airport?
I'm sorry.
Put it down anyway.
Yeah. You can write that down.
Yeah.
I don't think they have facilities for a lot. That's right, the beach is there, right? You can't go without it. Doesn't your office have?
They turn it side.
They want us to write our vision of what
Yeah.
we want to see with it? Okay.
Big what? Oh, the pink?
Yeah, any of them.
Good for him. Get in the bed.
I'm gonna get a different color this time.
Yeah, they taste different.
Anybody with a read my
Color.
need green?
That's what I got. I got green. Yeah.
You got it. There's a lot of greens in here. I touched them all.
Okay. What do we say when we're having tests? Pens down.
Oh. Okay,
Time's up.
all right, last one.
Do you have one, Janet?
Oh.
Oh,
That one just flew under someone's head.
Can't get it.
Yeah, that,
Reach down. Thank you.
I think we're all wearing pants.
Yep.
Maybe that wasn't what he meant, Greg.
Well, I think that is what it meant. He didn't want to go down on the table if somebody's wearing skirts.
It's because some of them,
I thought
the
maybe
way that they're
just
folded,
better.
the bottom is
Maybe
the
get back up.
sticky.
Oh, I didn't take it that
Granddaughter
way.
said,
I have another
you
match.
nailed it, same as your grandmother day. So now I look like, feel like I'm gonna throw up when I look up. Go back and write that.
I think Stephen.
No, that's good.
Alan has no
She
idea,
thinks
so.
so.
I think what you guys are doing is terrific.
Thank you. Do you want a magic pill?
A what?
Magic pill.
Wait,
He doesn't need those.
Okay.
Matt Wett's,
I can't. I'm
Be careful, the
I got no
power,
place.
I'm not telling.
I'm boxed in here. Thanks.
they're powerful, be careful.
Better give Sue a couple more.
All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to start. What I'm going to try to do is start by just summarizing what the ideas, some of the ideas. Maybe I can move this. I can't. I'm only limited in terms of how far I can go. I'm going to try to, because you can't see these, I'm going to try to read back what your fellow members here have expressed. So we have a lot of comments on the transitional areas. So this is probably.
Hello.
Jeff, for
I was
God's
testing whether or not you could pull
You
that
have
out,
been
so.
an issue tonight, Jeff. You know that? Anyway, so a lot of comments. What this says to me, just at first blush, is that these are areas that need to have a lot of attention paid to them in the conduct of the master plan. These probably are areas where there's a lot of dynamics going on, a lot of concerns, potential land use changes, redevelopment opportunities. By the mere number of comments, these are some areas where there should be attention paid to this. So we talked, 1A was about the mixed-use area on Lots Road. Do not build near Willow Creek Drain. Retail and Ford Office Hotel to the south and along I-275, residential towards Cherry Hill. Preserve a pocket park, and that was a comment that was also shown under, I saw that.
Those are both mine.
Yeah. Preserve a park, allow for clustering PDD, mixed use along 275, parking lots in back of new small shop and small walkable store developments to encourage pedestrian interaction. Again, consistent with some things that I saw on transportation about walkability. Lots Road mixed use should contain lots of greenway and walking parks. I would prefer office and mixed use, no large boxes, but smaller shops. Okay. Those are, pretty, I think, thoughts that are pretty much in sync with one another. Mixed use along Michigan Avenue, okay? A little bit more divergence in some of the comments here. Near landfill, unless we do chemical bore testing in land beyond landfill and determine if safe building safe building will not occur in case organic breakdown occurs. In other words, a concern about, the effects of the landfill on particularly residential, but probably lots of different kind of building. Question why Michigan Avenue is so difficult to develop. I saw that question, and I have a suggestion for you how you can find out. Ask realtors and developers. They'll tell you. You could have a single land use forum, real estate forum, over just Michigan Avenue, and you would learn a lot. I strongly suggest that would be the case. We've done that in a lot of communities where we have an area that, as planners, we're really trying to find out what the real estate market would do in this area? Well, the best people to talk to about that is the people that you know are going to invest their dollars in a particular area or not. And I learn more from the real estate development community than I do from a lot of planners, frankly, about what needs to be done or what should be done. So if you have questions about that or any other area, you'll get a wealth of information if you ask the people why they're not developing in that area. Less liquor stores and motels, user-friendly shopping district, light industrial research and regional jobs, which Michigan Avenue is going to be the area, as you would suggest, Sue, that will be impacted either positively or negatively, but hopefully positively, by the ACM facility, because it's the area that's in closest proximity to that. So there'll be a lot that could occur in that area in terms of providing spin-off jobs as well as services for folks that are going to work in that area. Light industrial regional jobs, retail and offices north, retail, offices, industrial, residential to the south. No residential building in mixed-use area, especially near landfill. An increase, okay, so these thoughts are really pretty similar. You know, more research office, why is it difficult to develop, less liquor stores, more job-producing type activities. So those are pretty consistent. The industrial uses east of I-275 and north, okay. Recreational uses in the industrial. Somebody likes trampolines and go-karts. Was that a specific suggestion that we need more trampolines in this community? I think we do, you know. Undeveloped industrial uses to become residential if adjacent to residential, okay? Light industrial research jobs, mixed land use, light industrial research is the future, okay? We need to think about what to do with excellent thought, by the way. We need to think about what to do with big box development as stores close. Kmart, IKEA is great. What will happen to the other places? You know, it's a reality. It's a reality that phenomena is occurring, and it will be interesting to see in the retail trend. Most retail trends that you see today, the predictions are that smaller, not bigger, is what's going to occur. In fact, many stores, Target is downsizing their prototype. We're still going to have bricks and mortar. You know, even Amazon is building bricks and mortar stores. I mean, who would think? But they are. Okay. Any mixed-use area should have a required percent of parkland and open space. Okay. And any mixed-use area should ensure that traffic is paid to the traffic it will create. Okay. Traffic is an issue with mixed-use developments. I'm going to come back to these and ask as a group areas that are particularly important to you, okay? Okay, on development objectives. Density in our community is increasing, affecting quality of life. That's something that we know. Because of that, I would like to see an effort to remove possible rezonings to higher densities in the land use map. Protect more green space and historic resources, work with leisure services to ensure pocket parks on the east side, more parks in the eastern port of Canton. That's a couple comments about that. The natural resources of the character of the community includes farmland, and efforts should be made to ensure farmland will remain, use various tools to ensure, such as land banking, to ensure that will be done. Natural and historic resources should be preserved. How do we make sure or enforce the quality of development after completion? More green and walking space, that's a common theme. Somebody said nothing to improve on. There's a satisfied taxpayer and commissioner board member. Not a lot of comments here on infrastructure. Basically, the general theme I see here is want to make sure that available capacity should be considered in all land use decisions about how It's really not hard to get to. Your utility folks can tell you that and have that information. So it's a reasonable question to ask when you are being considered, when you're considering both your master plan in terms of whether certain areas are capable of being accommodating higher density, or certain areas need to accommodate lower density than that. Somebody says these considerations are already being used, already, no change. Are we close to capacity on water and sewer? Can we get more information? So probably not a lot to talk about there, other than the fact that let's not use our capacity up if we don't have it, or let's get more information about that. Well, a lot of traffic issues. I tried to group these into sort of three or four groups. Some of these were more physical or operational improvements. Put a light at Sheldon and Palmer. Traffic flow, change the lights, change the timing of the lights based on the time of day. Priorities should be Getty's, Sheldon, and Michigan Avenue. Too many accidents, roundabouts would work. Widen Canton Center Road between Getty's and Palmer. A lot of comments about electric and autonomous vehicles. That's good, because I think the fact is you're thinking about this, you are anticipating that there's going to be changes. Electric EV charging stations, obviously. Autonomous vehicles, which, you know, fully autonomous vehicles may be a way off down the road. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot more autonomy that's being built into vehicles today and will continue to be changing. And so the fact that you're thinking about the impact that's going to have on the community is good. I don't have any answers for you, but I anticipate that more information will be coming out as years, you know, in the next coming years about what the effect will be. Walkability, again, hearkening back to a couple other comments, walkability is important. You know, as the population ages, walking is the primary form of, I know firsthand, by the way, walking becomes the primary form of recreation and exercise. So walkability really is important in a community, you know, especially when you have such a robust residential environment here. So ensuring that you have, you know, good connections and safe routes is important. Now, we have a lot of comments about the fact that you have no control over your roads from the standpoint of funding and operations and maintenance. Take more control over road repair. Look at Lower Rouge model. I'm not familiar with that. What's the Lower Rouge model?
That was my comment.
Okay.
So the property, I believe, is owned by Wayne County. However, we paid to put in some of the bridges, and we, I think, maintain the property. So
Okay.
I guess I was challenging the premise of that question, which was that because we don't have jurisdiction over it, we shouldn't be contributing to this solution or maintaining it.
Got it. Okay, how can we effectively communicate to citizens we have no jurisdictions over roads? Tough problem. Your citizens don't, you know, you're right, don't think that,
I
but
can understand that.
yeah. Wayne County and MDOT holds up to concise improvements and should step up their game. How can we gain more intergovernmental support? Wayne County traffic management area upgrades some level, same level as Oakland and Macomb counties. Good point. And finally, these were the sort of the catch-all for anything that wasn't up there. So we need to prioritize zoning that promotes job and economic growth beyond commercial. So that kind of goes back to that comment about Michigan Avenue needing to be more of a employment and maybe technology-based corridor. Lower density of zoning on Ford Road, east side of Canton. In residential areas, restrict commercial zoning. That makes a lot of sense. Well, PC and education system, I'm not sure I understood this one. While the PC and education system do not cooperate, the schools should have input into planning.
I wrote that because we're in a community that has three basic school systems and, well, actually four if you
Okay.
consider the charter school systems, and we really don't have a handle on how those changes that they're undergoing affect like our residential zoning, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's not a big impact, but do we even know what the impact is without the communication with the education system?
Okay, I get it now. Thanks. Okay. Again, several comments about more walkability. near stores, and more green space, okay? So let's go back. I'm going to, in the time that we have here, you know, there's surprising, you know, not surprising to me, but is quite a bit of unanimity of thought here in many of these areas. A lot to build on and to work towards. But as we're looking at these transitional areas, particularly of your comments, what has stood out to you as particularly high priorities in any of these areas? What are things of the highest priority that you see that the commission should be working on and that the board should be thinking about? Hey, Greg?
Gaps and transitions.
Okay. Can you give a good example?
We're at a point where we're kind of like shoehorning in projects from time to time, and they may or may not be what was originally planned, but there's where we are right now, and that's what the interest is in the property, and so we have to make that work if it's going to be good for the township. So there may be some zoning changes that have to take place because of that. Gaps, getting to the transportation thing in terms of pedestrianism. We've got a lot of gaps. We want the community to be more walkable. We have an excellent opportunity to fill in gaps, and we should take those opportunities.
Are these the areas, as you know, your experience with the commissioners? I mean, these are where you're getting a lot of the pressure points in terms of your neighboring residences and citizens in those areas?
I don't know that there's a pressure that I feel. I see it. I just know that we've arrived at a place where we need to step up our game so that we can complete some of the stuff that has started 25, 30 years ago.
Okay.
You know, we have development that takes place. For example, sidewalks. We have developers that complete sidewalks, but they only complete sidewalks for the areas that they develop. So if there's an area that is not under development, it gets no sidewalk. So we have to come up with a plan, and we have done that from time to time and little by little, but we need to basically take it to the next level.
So would the rest of the group agree that in this plan, the concentration should be placed on some of these areas that are remaining, and that maybe more detailed planning and thinking needs to go into these areas? Is that what you're saying, Greg?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the thinking about that? What do the board members think about that? And areas, yep.
It's difficult because you have to look at, I mean, we have traffic and congestion, we know that. The problem is, I mean, there's a balance, because if you make bigger roads, then more traffic comes. So bigger roads don't necessarily reduce traffic. Sometimes you get more traffic there. But like New York City, what they did is with Times Square, a lot of the traffic was bottlenecking through there, and they just closed down Times Square.
Right.
And they just made it a walkable area, and the traffic is routed around there now. But that's changed.
Closed down Ford Road.
Yeah, that's right.
What a concept.
We got a lot of pushback from people. Actually, the traffic became more efficient the way they did it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so even though we've gotten to a point, we can always still look back and say, maybe we should change things up that way a little bit too. You know, maybe we can step a little backwards to take 2 steps forward.
Okay. Other thoughts about that? Sue?
Well, somebody comes before us and they own the property and they meet the requirements because we don't particularly care for it. It's their property. We can't tell them that they can't build there unless they are breaking the rules somewhere along the line. I mean, we can try to get it to, you know, push them to make it look more like we want it to look, and I think we've done a pretty good job about that. But that's a hard one.
Yeah. It is.
I think on these 3 areas here, I don't know the Kaepernick one as well. I don't know. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time in the industrial area. I mean, I've been through it some. But the other 2, I just want to make sure we do it in a way that seen by our community as beneficial to the community. You know, that this is something that the people want in our community, and that it will be exciting to the community as well.
Sure.
And then also safe to the community, both with traffic and then, of course, the whole issue with the landfill and making sure that we're not building on something that's going to kill people.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah,
Diane?
yeah, I agree. We want it more walkable, and we do have gaps. We have people walking in the street because they can't, there's no sidewalk for them. But also, like on Michigan Ave, I think we have a great opportunity because we're in between Ann Arbor, U of M, Willow Run, Detroit, Metro Airport, and we just have for research and light industrial, I mean, it's such a great spot for the future because that is our future, you know? The big box retail.
And you have land, I mean, there's
I worry
still,
about 10 years from
Yeah.
now, what's going to happen?
there's still, there's still developable land down there, you know? That's a real challenge. I mean, that's great challenge, but a wonderful opportunity down there. I think you're absolutely right about that. Yes, Greg?
I think that your idea of a forum with real estate experts is a good idea because we do need to know how that area is looked upon by the real estate profession and the people that are possibly considering that because it's going to affect how we use the master plan in that area because we don't know who's ultimately going to be interested in it. We know who we might like to have that interest, but we need to know who is interested.
I can assure you that that area is being carefully looked at and monitored by exactly the people that I'm suggesting you talk to.
I've got a question I've been meaning to ask for a while for Jeff. Where are the railroad tracks down south of Michigan Avenue that would be used for what was originally proposed in the last ballot amendment, but eventually could be used for a Ann Arbor trip?
They're along the south boundary of the township. They cross down near Van Born Road, so. They cross the corner, Steve, if you look at the map here. Whoops. This is the railroad line right here. Right. Well, the light purple is light industrial. The dark purple is basically our landfills. That's the general industrial and, heavy trucking uses.
The reason I say that is, I mean, if they go through with some kind of transportation, I would like to see a Canton stop on that train line. And I was wondering if we could include that in our planning. I don't know if it's possible.
Well, I think we need to work with the Regional Transportation Authority, and last year when they were meeting, they've already determined where the stops are going to be. Part of the problem with that is that there's 3 different modes of transportation they're planning for. They're planning for the rail service, they're planning for, bus rapid transit, plus, regular bus service that makes the connections between that and BRT and the rail line. And, there's 3 major lines that they're planning for, and they're have to with the autonomous vehicle, things that are going on in the region. I think they're going to have to go back and look at that overall plan to see what's going to work for the region. Right. Right.
And whether it's down by 275, or I'm not really sure what available land there is to build a train stop, but then also maybe around the train stop.
And you already have essentially a multimodal facility in Dearborn with the Dingle Center. I mean, the train stop they were looking at initially was really in Wayne because it provided a connector to the airport, and then Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor. But I mean, that's yeah, right.
Yeah.
One of the things that, when we're talking about Michigan Avenue, our mixed-use policies right now, are really commercial, light industrial research, light industrial on the south side and office. Essentially, those are the districts that can be considered within that mixed-use area. It allows some flexibility in land use based on market conditions. What we're seeing is, if you remember the Sing Industrial Park there over by Lily Road, a few years ago, they rezoned all of the vacant land to commercial. Now the Planning Commission is going to be rezoning it all back to light industrial research, because Singh is now seeing that the demand for industrial and high-tech users is coming back to the area. They don't see any demand in that area for commercial. But that's one of those things that Dick alluded to, is like the real estate community knows where things need to be based on where you're at. And if we allow the plan to be flexible enough, then we can respond to that.
Right.
And I think that's what we're doing.
Because, Jeff, you're exactly right, because industrial is not what it was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And in flexible industrial space is really what people, do you know what the vacancy rate in southeastern Michigan is right now in existing industrial space? No. It's 3%. I mean, it's astounding. The highest rate of vacancy in land use is multiple families, existing multiple family, the vacancy rate is very low, 3 to 5%. Commercial space is where the vacancy rates are the highest. But would you have ever thought 10 years ago that we have such a lack of improved industrial space in southeastern Michigan that we have a 3% vacancy rate? Pretty amazing. So your thoughts are, you're thinking along the right lines, because I know that aside from just what's going on with ACM and some of the other things, that corridor through there, because of the logistics associated with the airports, the transportation, the transportation system, the interstate transportation system, that area is highly valued in terms of potential for industrial and research office development. Okay, other things, because we have a limited amount of time, we've got a few more minutes, we do have to still allow time for public comment. Before I get through this, is there other things that are really of a high priority that you would like the Planning Commission would like to concentrate on, or the board would like the Planning Commission? I've heard a lot about the walkability issue, and complete streets is now a required element of the plan. So you have to look at the full capability of your transportation corridors for all modes of transportation. That's what the complete streets policy is all about. Promoting interconnectivity, sounds like was a big issue here, and doing what you can to try to improve all of that. What else? More green space, yeah.
You just said what I was going to say.
Yeah, more additional green space, yeah, Dawn.
One thing that somebody had a comment on the fifth board that I disagree with, and I just wanted to bring up, and that is that I thought I heard you read one of the comments that said, let's have less mixed commercial and residential. I kind of think the other way. I wrote it down so maybe we could stick it up there now, but maybe I misunderstood.
Oh,
Yeah.
in residential areas, restrict commercial zoning.
So I'd like to challenge that. So my opinion is we should mix more, but
our first official controversy.
Well,
But there are no wrong answers.
Yeah, I think to
right.
provide some historical perspective is in the 70s, 60s and 70s, when the original PDD concept came through, almost every single project had a commercial component to it. So a lot of our neighborhood commercial areas you see were part of those original PDDs.
Yeah.
What we did in the 90s is we looked at some of those commercial tracts that were in PDDs and that were zoned and planned that way but never used because there wasn't enough demand for them areas. And our master plan was changed to convert those to some type of residential that may have been more suitable for that neighborhood. And what that did, it didn't automatically rezone the property because zoning was in place and the PDD agreement was in place. But what it did is it said, okay, we've got enough commercial in these areas. This property's been sitting here since the 70s. It's not used. What is a better use for it? And what happened then is because we communicated the fact that these particular little pockets, like for example at Haggerty and Palmer, there was a little site there. There was a little infill, residential project that came in because we changed the plan to residential instead of commercial, and all of a sudden, a developer found a use for that site that fit in and blended in with the neighborhood. So that's one thing that our plan can do either on the land use map or in our policies is to communicate what we want to happen in certain areas. in certain cases, there's zoning in place or there's zoning entitlements through development agreements that we can't change, especially those old agreements for the 70s. But that doesn't mean that a developer can't come in and request to change it to be consistent with the plan. So when we deal with these mixed uses, we had way too much commercial in a lot of these, older neighborhoods that were just sitting there unused. And so that was a good way to then repurpose those, those sites to basically complete those neighborhoods in a more effective manner, rather than just having commercial out there for the sake of having commercial.
Right.
That
Because
wasn't
it was
going
an
to be utilized.
Because it
the
was
market
an
wasn't there.
intersection,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking more about like Cherry Hill Village and some of the newer developments that are coming in, like
Yeah.
over behind Home Depot on Ford Road, where they're mixing commercial and residential, and I think that's a wonderful thing, so.
And that's and that's encouraged in the plan and in our zoning code through the use of conditional zoning, through the use of plan development options and those kinds of things.
Michael, you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I agree, because I do feel, especially if we talk about traffic, which came up there as an issue, part of the issue is.
And walkability.
Is to participate in commerce in Canton, you do have to drive for the most part. So I do like the notion of those kind of mixed use, areas where you can actually have what would amount to is a quasi downtown area.
Sure.
Where you, so that's, I like. I also think about when you look at trends, when you look at kind of like, there's like you look at the 40-year kind of trend for commerce kind of coming to an end, where you had a lot of retail in exurban malls and kind of like strip mall retail, which seems like it's kind of contracting and going back into urban districts or town districts where people are going there for shopping. That's something that concerns me. Also, millennials, people just a little bit younger than myself, which is the next boom of home buyers if they ever can get away from their student loan debt.
If they can ever accumulate enough capital.
Right, no, for sure. But when you look at where they want to move to, walkable communities.
Yes.
Near commercial districts.
Near entertainment.
Right, and I think, so I do think if we're talking about what does Canton look like, we have a lot of inventory, and right now it's hot, right? Everyone knows it's, there's just a story in the Observer that homes are moving fast, and they are. But what does that look like when the next wave of home buyers come through, and is Canton going to be the destination they look for? And I think it's our job to make sure it is, right?
I think one thing about that comment though also, when, even just like the Warren and Sheldon area, where you had a lot of homes, then you have a small commercial strip mall there, and a piece of land that people thought was just natural land for a long time, all of a sudden, something's going there, commercial, and it's upsetting the balance of what's happening there. So we have to also consider, I think, that balance when we look at commercial and residential. And, do we just say, no, we're going to just keep this green space and make more of that?
Greg?
One of the things that I think I brought up in our last planning commission meeting is the fact that when we approve residential projects, and we approve them as one entity, we basically look at that in a silo type of situation, and it's not encouraging in terms of walkability. We don't require a cross-access of pedestrianism from one neighborhood to another, and I think that's been a mistake.
Yeah.
I think we should have had that as a requirement. I'm not in agreement of doing that for vehicular traffic, but for pedestrian use, going from one neighborhood to another without going out onto the major thoroughfare. Even though we might have sidewalks on those major roads, I just don't think it should be necessary to go from one neighborhood to another on your bike to go into the major road.
Good comment. Sue?
Question, what if it happened to the discussion about the boulevard on Ford Road?
Yeah.
The pipe dream?
Huh?
Still in process.
Okay, thank you.
Process or progress?
Process.
It's still proceeding in the planning stages.
Yeah. Yes, sure.
I know that, Kristen, you might be able to answer this one. We had looked at before, even with zoning, even if we're asking to decrease some of the density, and and the developer is saying, hey, around here you had higher density and now you're lowering mine. I mean, obviously, we're going to look at probably lawsuits, right? I mean, if we start changing things up, or how do you avoid that?
Well, when you get to a community that's as developed as Canton, you're sort of locked into a lot of those earlier decisions that were made by the community. I like talking about those apartments out there on the east side. I mean, when you've got everybody around you that's zoned R6, it is not defensible to say, no, it has to stay R2. It's a loser, which is why that was the advice that we had given you. You know, we have little bits of land left throughout the community. We don't have any large tracts left. So, you know, if you start to try to limit density, you're going to find yourself in court because, you know, we can't tell the property owners they can't develop it if they meet the requirements, you know.
Probably the only opportunity you have that is Mr. Schultz bought up a lot of the development land west of Bar Road and south of Getty's Road. It was zoned R2 and R3 and R4 by Biltmore as part of a larger project many years ago. He voluntarily took that R2 and R3 and R4 zoning and rezoned it back to rural agricultural so then he could apply to the state for an agricultural exemption on that for 99 years. Okay, so that's probably but would he agree for his, he's not a spring chicken anymore, and he has people, he probably has heirs. Do you think that he really wants to get rid of his potential development value of his property when he's done farming it for his heirs? I mean, yes, could we reestablish an agricultural designation on the master plan to be consistent with the zoning that he has in place? Yeah, probably, but that doesn't mean that when he's done farming it, you're not going to get an application in 5 years to change the density, back up to where it is. Right.
And I think that where there's opportunity to do that, we should be doing.
Right, but in the instance, right now he has a development potential based on where the master plan is and what all the surrounding zoning is. So the issue is okay, next year may be his year to quit farming, whether it is or not. And this is just an example. If somebody comes to you, you're going to have to look at the surrounding zoning patterns and what's around it. You've got a mobile home park there that's at 10 units per acre that he flanks. You've already got property to the north and south that's 2 to 3 units per acre. So can we artificially change it back to agricultural because that's the way he zoned it? Maybe, but in the long run, the master plan's a long-range plan. It's a 20-year plan. It's a 40-year plan. I know, but do we want to keep changing densities every 5 years, or do we want to say, this is the way we want to build it? And this is a hypothetical question for all of you, is do we want to artificially change the master plan back to something just because somebody wanted to zone that way to get a tax benefit, for one reason? Mm-hmm. Or do we really want to look at it realistically and say, this is what in the future we want this to look like and be? So that's a hypothetical question in terms of what the goal of the master plan is. It is. On the master plan, it's R2, 3, and 4. No, it's R2 adjacent to Getty's Road. As you get closer to Michigan Avenue, it goes down to R4 adjacent to the mobile home park, because the mobile home park is at 8 to 10 units per acre. So that transition from Getty's Road down to Michigan Avenue transitions from 2 to 3 to 4, and it's only 4 away if you get way down to Michigan Avenue. I mean, that's something the Planning Commission can take a look at in terms of what's reasonable.
And I think this discussion is very on point with some of the tough decisions that you will be facing, and so. Several of the things that could come out of this thing are issues of dealing with more of a qualitative nature in terms of what you want to see necessarily than a quantitative nature in terms of the just being density being the determination. So these are the areas where I suggest that when you get into the master plan, you do more finely grained planning about these areas. You look at areas that might be preserved as open space, and you offer opportunities for incentive to have that developed in the way that you want to see it developed. But those are the areas that are going to take a lot more work when you are in the midst of doing this. Okay, before, we're all a little bit over, but I don't think that's bad. Any other final hot button issue here that anybody wants? One of the things I want to tell you is that you will see all these things. We will compile all of these thoughts so that you have a record of them, as well as the notes that Charlotte's been taking over there, and it'll be something that can be of use. This is probably the kind of working session that as you get into more detail on things, you probably should have additional working sessions with one another. Because ultimately, when these decisions come from the Planning Commission to the board's going to have to make the final decisions on things such as the master plan, if you so choose, but also on rezonings that come before you. So are there any other final thoughts of the day here before I wrap up and allow you to wrap up your meeting and ask for public comment?
Well, mine would just be that what we've identified here, what it sounds like, is we're in a position where we need to identify the areas that need the most flexibility. Maybe that's not a good word. We have ways of dealing with it, as Jeff pointed out, conditional zoning and things of that nature. But I don't want to see us get into a lot of difficulty over those in any kind of court cases and whatnot. Perhaps it's something that should be publicly identified as areas that are potential to go in a couple of different directions based upon interest. I don't know if that's useful to everyone or the real estate community, but perhaps something that we might undertake is actually identifying some of these pockets that are
well, and I'm sure Kristen will tell you, and Carol Rosati did probably tell you that, your obligation is to permit reasonable use of the land, not necessarily highest and best use. You'll be told that's what you're supposed to do, but you have to be able to justify reasonable use of the land. So really what that means is, can someone does someone have the ability to make a reasonable return on their investment based on based on their investment in that piece of property?
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is if we're using the master plan as our guide, our kind of Bible, but our feet might be held to the fire as to specific land uses along the way, perhaps we kind of put some water on that fire by saying, yeah, this is in the master plan this way, but we could see this use or that use for this area.
Sure. That's good.
I think, Greg, our master plan currently does a lot of those things. There are some absolutes in the plan in terms of maximum densities and those kinds of things based on our utility availability. That's one thing, that our utility availability and our master plan right now are in sync. We know based on the build out of the master plan that we have the capacity to serve what's planned. Those two things have been coordinated over the years to make sure that when a zoning decision comes in, if it doesn't exceed the density or intensity of the master plan, that we know we're going to be able to serve it. If somebody wants to request a higher density on the master plan or a higher zoning under a conditional zoning or a PUD, then we have to go back and evaluate and run the model and see what we have available in that particular district or whether it impacts it at all. And I think one of the things that the plan does through our policies and objectives, we do have those things where we encourage the use of either conditional zoning or a PUD to allow the flexibility so that in all cases, especially in those mixed-use areas, we're not boxed in those areas that are transitional. And I think that's where you get the flexibility to look at those things to see whether it makes sense or not, based on, what's happening around it, whether it's consistent with and compatible with the surrounding land uses, especially in the Lots Road corridor. One example is the conditional rezoning that was approved last year for that 40-acre tract. They were restricted from going to the west side of Lots Road because our master plan was absolute and say absolutely no residential west of Lots Road.
Let's not get too deep in the weeds here when we
But those are
summarize things up here, okay?
But those are examples
Yes,
of the
good
flexibility
examples.
of things that
Yeah.
were absolute and those things that were not absolute.
Yeah,
So-
that's good. Okay, any other final thoughts? Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You were very easy to get to participate, although I never have that feeling here in Canton that I have a problem with getting people to participate. So I do think you have a final thing of public comment, whoever's chairing the meeting here, and we'll wrap up our part. So again, thank you.
Okay.
My
Thank
arm's
you.
getting tired, by the way, holding this.
Thanks, Dave.
No, no.
Thanks, Jim.
So good job. And so you're gonna put together a summary, basically, of what we've done here today? And we'll all get copies of that, I'm sure. Are there any public comments to be made on what we accomplished here tonight?
Come on.
Come on, John, come on.
Good.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for being here. And so with that said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, let's go.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank